Alright, so today we are going to be repotting Terra, which is the monstera mama plant. It is a mama plant because we did take some cuttings earlier and propagated those, and those are also ready to go. So if you didn't watch my video of how to properly propagate monsteras, you can go ahead and watch those, but those are the leaves. The same leaves that we propagated those from, and these were propagated in the water. So those are ready to also be repotted, and we are going to use this pot to repot those in. We are repotting those in with the mother plant, and one of these plants is actually a baby plant because you see it doesn't have the fenestrations because it's still young. So I am going to put that in a pot of its own. So we're going to leave here with two different pots for the monstera. One is a baby one, and then these two that are in here is going to go in here, and then the other, I believe there's 3 other stems that are the adult of this one after we ended up cutting off not only those 2, but I think we cut off 3 other cuttings. Those are still propagating in other, they're propagating in other substrates and not water. I have one in cocoa coir, another one is propagating in just perlite, and then I have another one propagating in the soil mixture that I made. So those 3 are still propagating. So just be sure to watch my other video to see how I propagated this one in water and then the other ones in the other substrates. I am going to wait 2 months before I do see the root development on the other plants, just like I waited 2 months for these roots as well. Now I already have my moss pole in there. This is going to be on the back of where the monstera is going to be going. So this is going to be on the back. So I believe it's going to, we're going to end up putting this one this way, because the monstera leaves are going to be facing towards where the light is going to come from. So you want to make sure that you put this in the back of that, and on the back of here you can see our new leaf had grown in the water. So here's the roots. They are ready to be planted, and these were 2 different plants. So here's one of the plants in the roots, and then here's the other plant in the roots with the new leaf. We're just going to set those in there, and then the other ones are here ready to go as well, and these were 2 different ones as well. So actually, what do we have here? Okay, wait a second. Okay, yeah, so these were 2 different ones. One had 3, or 4 leaves on it. So here's one ready to go, and it has 4 leaves. We're gonna set that in there too, and then this one, a new leaf is trying to come in there, and it had 1 leaf. It's ready to go. We're gonna set that in there too. And now we can go ahead and start on the mama plant and separate the baby plant. Down here, we can separate the baby plant from the mama plant and put the mama plant in this pot, and the baby plant is going to go in this pink pot. As you can see, there is 4 stems here. So this is the baby plant that we're going to separate, and then there's 3 other ones that are going to go in the black pot. Now I don't want to use any of this old soil. I don't want to use any of this. I'm going to use all new soil. So I'm going to actually get another pot because I don't have another bucket, but I'm going to get another pot that's going to be big enough to put all this old soil in. It's because I'm not seeing, I mean, I see some wood chips, but I don't see a lot in here actually, but I also see some vermiculite that I apparently used instead of perlite, or you can use perlite or you can use pumice, but looks like I put in some vermiculite in here. And then if you want to see how I make my soil, I also have a video of that as well posted. But yeah, we're going to try and get as much of this out as we can before we start separating the stems. So we're going to try and get most of this out. Alright, so this is the baby plant. I just separated it, and then here are the roots to the baby plant. Now this is going to be in a different pot only because none of these leaves has fenestrations, and it's younger one. It's actually one that I grew from seed that I had placed in the plant with the mama plant. But anyways, it's going to go in its own little pink pot. And then I'm just going to set this to the side for now until I get all of the other roots out and all the other plants out and placed into the black pot. Then we'll go ahead and pot the baby plant and the mama plant. So we're gonna start with the baby plant and we're gonna place it in this pink pot. Now I'm wondering if I can actually kind of curve this. Now this was grown from seed. So this one was actually grown from seed. I'm wondering if I can curve this inside the pot because it does have some aerial roots where, you know, it can, you know, build a bigger or stronger base because right now this stem is not thick. So I'm wondering if I can just like kind of curl it in there and then fill it up with some soil and put maybe a stake in there to kind of hold it up. But yeah, I think I want to just curve it in there. And there's a new plant trying to come in right here, new leaf. But yeah, I think we're going to do that for this one because it doesn't have a strong base at all. And there are some aerial roots that can eventually come out and build a bigger base because this is not going to be strong enough. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to curve it in there and fill it up with our potting mix, and then we're going to put a stake in there so that these will hold up. All right, so I just tied this up to a stake. Now this is just a bamboo stick. Everything I'm using is in my Amazon cart. In the description box, it's going to be titled plants. So that's just what that is. And of course, you want to make sure, once again, that whatever you are holding that up with, whether it's a moss pole or a bamboo stick, any type of stake that you hold your monstera up with, you want to make sure that it is in like the back so that the leaves can grow towards the light. So that's what we got here. And we can go ahead and fill it up with our potting mix that we have previously made. If you have not watched my video of how I make my soil, go ahead and watch that. The only difference is I use pumice. If you cannot find pumice, then perlite is fine. So now we can go ahead and start on the monstera. Now I did go ahead and add the other moss poles here because the monstera is pretty tall and we're going to need all these moss poles. So we did just go ahead and stick these in here. So once again, you want the moss pole to be on the back. So I am going to be making sure that whichever way the leaves are facing, try and make sure that those are in the front, and then trying to put the stem in the back. Now some of these stems aren't thick enough neither, so we're going to try and work with what we got so far, but we're going to tie up as we go. So, and then I'm probably going to end up using all of my soil that I have left that I have made here. So yeah, that's probably going to be all gone after I fill this up. So there's not really an easy way to do this, but the easiest way that I have found is that you're going to start with your tallest plant. So I had two that were tall. One was taller than the other, and then one just had a lot more tall leaves on it. But start with your tallest plant and you're going to tie that down to the moss pole. Then your next tallest, which in my case happened to be one that just had a whole bunch of tall leaves on it, that one was tied down next. And then the next taller one was tied down last. So I had 3 mama plant ones, basically, the ones that weren't cuttings, that were tied down to the moss pole. Now when you do this, once again, you want to make sure that that moss pole is in the back. So I positioned the roots towards the front. Now even though these have tall leaves, the stems weren't, some of the stems, like I said, aren't, well, actually none of the stems were like strong enough to, hold those tall leaves. So I didn't necessarily bend some of the stems down there into where the soil would be. I kind of like leaned them like down in where the soil would be. So not really bending, because if you bend it, it's going to break, but kind of leaning it down towards where the soil would be, because there are aerial roots down towards the end of where the roots are anyways. So once those aerial roots start to come out, it'll give it a stronger base for, roots or whatever, because none of these stems were like thick or at all for a strong base. So I did lean the roots towards the front, and then I tied the tallest one down first, the next tallest one, and then the last tallest one. So what you don't want to do is you don't want to start filling it with soil. So it may be easier to just fill that with soil, because then your moss pole is in place. But I actually had to hold the moss pole with one hand while I'm doing all of this and tying it down, and so it is harder to do it that way. But I did not want to put any soil in there before I had my cuttings in there, and I wanted my roots to all be, at the same level. So I didn't want to put any soil in there, and then when I started with my cuttings will be, higher up. I didn't want to do that. So the cuttings are all going to be in the front because they are shorter, and then the taller ones are in the back because they're taller, and those are the ones that are being held by the moss pole. So like I said, there's not really an easier way to do that, but that is how I did it. And once again, I think the main point that I want to make is that you make sure your roots are going towards the front and not towards the back, not towards the moss pole. You want your roots to be there in the front, and you want your leaves to be turned away from the moss pole. right, y'all, fast forward. I just ended up dumping that whole bucket inside of here because didn't nobody have time to be doing scoop by scoop by scoop. So this is what it's looking like with everything in there. And this is as tall as it is. It's pretty tall. But this is what we wanted. We wanted most of the leaves to be faced a certain way. That way, when you do set it up, you're wanting to make sure that you set this up towards the window where the leaves are facing. So this side is going to be facing towards the window. All the other leaves that aren't faced this way is going to eventually turn towards the sunlight and end up facing this way. So that's why you want the pole to be in the back. All these leaves, I try to put most of them face, in the same direction, but any leaf that's not facing this way will eventually start to turn to face the front. So this is the cuttings that we did are here in the front, the shorter ones here. These are the cuttings that we did. And then of course the mother plant is back there and it is tied up. So, and then also I did have to use some of my old soil on top, okay, on top. As long as the new soil is covering the roots, it's okay to use some more, some of the old soil on top of the plant. Not where the roots are at, but on top of the plant. So we're still good. But yeah, and it did take more than I had to fill up. It pretty much was all the way filled up though. I didn't have to use too much of that, which is good. It was pretty much filled up. So once again, here it is, completely done. And these were the cuttings that we propagated, plus the mother plant. And then the baby plant, of course, it's in its own little pot. All right, and once again, here is the baby plant in its own little pink pot. Now, these are not tied with the rubber ties that I used for the bigger plant. This is some sort of yarn. Check the list. I can't remember what type of yarn this is, but check the list to see what that is. I don't think it really matters, but I just in case you were wondering, it's not the same. But yeah, most of the leaves are towards the front. Back there is the bamboo stick holding the plant up. And then these are also monsteras, but these are the other cuttings that I did. One over there in the perlite, one in the cocoa coir, and then one in the regular soil that I use. So after 2 months, I'm going to check on these and just check on the roots, because once again, it was 2 months before I did these cuttings here in the front. It was 2 months before I put it in this pot, so I am going to check these after 2 months just to see the root development and see the difference between the different substrates and then just the water method. The water method was really good. The root development was actually pretty good. I didn't know if I would be able to do that for the first time ever propagating, but I am trying with these substrates as well, just to see what the difference is going to be with these substrates and then just the water. So we will have to wait 2 months for these, and then that is the end of the video. So, oh yeah, once again, so this is the big plant, and then this is the window. And so here in the back is where the moss pole is. There in the front is where the plants are, facing towards where the light would be when this window is opened up. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that. So that is the end of this video. Don't forget to hit that like, don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to hit that bell so you don't miss my next notification of when I post my next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.